Family Secrets Part 2 is where I'm going to talk about how our identity is messed up when we have had, or someone we know has had, some kind of secret abuse that nobody knows about. If you have somebody in your family, or if you yourself have some of these traits in their behavior that I'm going to list, then it's possible that they were sexually abused. And some of those traits can really identify the reason why they keep going, spouse to spouse, divorce, marriage, like I did. And it can explain a lot of other things. They'll be very successful on the job. They're very smart. They can maintain themselves, but they walk through the door at night, after a long day, and they've made all this money, and they've provided for their family, and all of a sudden they just become this raging little child, and they cannot take responsibility behind closed doors in the family part of their life. They can go out and perform miracles outside of the house, but they come home and then they just crumble into this little child, this spoiled child. So what happens is, if you see that kind of person, if you have someone like that or know someone like that in your family or somebody else's family, what has happened is their identity was damaged as a child. So what happens is that child, because we get our identity from God the Father, and we are made in His image, and the earthly father was created to imitate or give the image of God to the children. Women, you have to remember, women were part of man. God created Adam and took Eve and created her out of man. So at one point, the two were one. That's why they were commanded that the husband should leave the father and the mother and cling to his wife. Therefore, your children will be one as you are one, and that your children will learn that the father is the image of God, and the mother is also the image of God from a different perspective. Of course, the mother is the one who is with the child the most. The mother is the one who is to comfort and counsel and lead the child around the living space and get them those kinds of needs and take care of those needs, making sure that they are fed, etc. But the husband sets the standard for the home. He's the one who is the rule maker and keeper. And he is the one who has to show the love of the Father and that you are forgiven when you screw up. He may have to discipline you. That's the model that we were supposed to have. Well, when the snake in the garden did his first marketing pitch to Eve, he planted a thought of doubt in her mind, and he tantalized her with an idea of her being like God. And he threw shadow on God's word, and he said, well, what he really meant was, he doesn't want you to know stuff. He's holding back. And you can be just like him. What he's holding back is knowledge. That's why that tree was called the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And so this snake was giving his pitch because he realized if he could split the wife from the husband and get them off of God's perfect plan and make them not one but two fighting against each other, he could destroy the children, the offspring. And that's what God wanted. God wanted a family. He wanted us to multiply in the earth, have children, and to take over the earth and enjoy it. And he wanted children. Now we know that through Jesus' death and resurrection, we are born again. That's how God got his children. Now, as being born again, that means we have to die to the old stuff. When a married couple gets married on their wedding night and come together as one, they are dying to themselves. Their old life passes away and it stops. No longer do I do what I used to do. No longer do I demand my own way. Now I am one with a man, a husband, and the husband is one with the wife. Both die to their former selves. And that death, if it does not take place on the wedding night, two people are fighting all the time, and most divorces happen within the first year. This is not what I signed up for, right? But the identity that they bring into the marriage, if they've been traumatized by especially sexual child abuse, but also any kind of abuse, if the father is absent, if the mother is dominant, if their marriage, if they weren't one, and they produce children, and you are one of those children, you are brought into a war zone, and you have to fight to live, because they cannot and will not resolve their own issues. And if they take you to church, and you see at home that mother and father are not one, and they're fighting, but you go to church, then you hear about this loving God who created man and woman to be one, and you're like, okay, this does not compute. My brain cannot resolve this. So you, thinking that you can not be like your mom and dad, make a little vow in your heart, I will not treat my kids like mom treated us or dad treated us. I will not be like my father. I will not be like my mother. I'm going to raise my kids differently. I'm going to marry somebody who's nice to me. I'm not going to put up, okay, so those are vows that a child makes. The problem with a vow is what Jesus said, let your yes be yes and your no be no. And I talk about vows on this channel, you can scroll down and see the one that says vows. It should be at the bottom of the list. It's the first one I uploaded. The thing about vows is that you are bound to fulfill that vow. And that's why Jesus said, do not swear by the temple or by the altar, because back then they would swear by the altar because it was holy, right? We will say things like, I swear on a Bible, or I swear. We used to do that in court. Put your hand on a Bible. I swear to tell the truth, nothing but the truth. But we would swear by heavens, pinky swear, all these swearings. Jesus counseled us to not swear at all. Don't make a vow, because when you do that, you are bound to it. And he himself in heaven holds you accountable to that. Well, when the devil sees and the demons that are roaming around looking for a house to live in, and a house, again, is a body, and you can learn about that also on my channel, about how demons get into us. They see that vow, and they will put in front of you all sorts of people that look attractive and say they love you, and then you'll fall for it and get into a marriage, and you will live out. You will become your mother. You will scream just like her. You will be angry just like her. You will choose the same kind of man. I mean, it's ironic. I have lived this myself, and in multiple marriages, and I turned into my mother, and I swore I would never be like her, and I turned out exactly like my mother. I was bitter and angry and cruel, and I regret those things, but I've been forgiven of those things. And so now I am training my own soul to not be like my mother, but doing it in the forgiveness of my mother. I forgave her. It's in forgiveness. It's letting your yes be yes and your no be no. And that's what Jesus taught. He said, anything else is evil, is from evil. It brings evil into your life. So look up that. I think it's Matthew Matthew chapter 6 or 7, I think it's Matthew chapter 6 where Jesus said, let your yes be yes and your no be no. Anything else from that is of evil. So, and that's where we get flattery and lying and people pretending to be your friend and pretending that you love your husband and pretending that you love your wife. Those things come out of not being honest with yourself, and your identity is in flux because you don't know who you are. You're looking for someone else to bring wholeness to you. You're looking for somebody else to bring you into where you know you need to be, but you can't get there from here. Unfortunately, there is not a human on the earth that can fill that place. God set eternity in the human heart. That's in the book of Ecclesiastes. King Solomon wrote that. God set eternity in the heart. You will always and forever be trying to fill that hole of eternity with another human being, or maybe a hobby or a job or some kind of a degree you're working towards. You will never have your identity until it's in Him, because He is your Father. If you are a Christian, you are born again. That means He fathered you. Just like a person says, that's my daddy. God is our daddy. He sired us. He gave birth to us and brought us forth through the death and the resurrection and the blood of His Son, Jesus. And when a woman gives birth to a child, there's a lot of blood that comes out and is covering that child. So it is in the Spirit when you are born again. You are covered in the blood of Christ and you have new life, and they spank your little butt and you cough out what's in your throat or mouth, and all of a sudden you breathe, and that breath is God's breath. Okay, when we talk, the breath in your lungs is His. That's why Jesus said every idle word is going to be judged. So these are pieces that you can put into the puzzle of Family Secrets. This message that I'm doing, this is part 2, and I'm just touching on identity. We're going to talk more about identity, and so in part 3. But I wanted you to get the understanding of how, from the beginning, we were created to be, and what the perfect model is, so that you can see how the enemy has worked so hard to destroy our children, and then how those children grow up and how they choose their spouse and how they get into these situations where they screw up their lives and they screw up everybody else's life because of their choices. So whether it be drugs or marriage or divorce or whatever it may be, we can do a lot of damage to those around us because we're still trying to find our identity, and our child inside is arrested at the age when our trauma came in, and our body has grown up chronologically. So that's Family Secrets Part 2, and I will talk more about this soon. Okay? Love you.